and welcome to the Voice Closeout event. The Voice program is a program that actually supports local organizations, NGO individuals to actually drive local mission for global relevance. And right now we're going to be having a conversation with one of the organizations that have been a beneficiary and also a very important guest, because he is, I'm not going to introduce my guest because I would want my guests to do justice of introducing themselves properly. So let me allow my guest introduce himself.
Thank you very much. My name is Distinguished Senator Eze Ajoko, OFR. The reason I'm here is because I'm the president of the Coalition of Societies for the Rights of Older Persons in Nigeria, an NGO that focuses on the care of the elderly in this country, because it's a coalition of over 148 CSOs, NGOs, retirement groups, and people who are working with older persons across the 36 states of the country. Okay, so that's why I'm here. I'm there because we have enjoyed voice funding for one of our programs called the Hangout, which we have done in 27 locations in Nigeria.
Wow. Wow.
Across the states.
Wow.
And the objective of the Hangout, of course, as you know, we are focused on everything that affects older persons. And one of the things that kills older persons is isolation. After you retire, your phone stops ringing. No one looks for you again.
Wow.
And if you are very old in the villages, everybody goes out and you are the only one at home.
Wow.
Even when old people come from the villages to the city and they come to visit their children will all go out for work and leave them with the television where there is electricity. So you find that when you don't talk to other people, you begin to depreciate mentally. That's why socialization and networking amongst your colleagues is a very important thing. And the program that Voice funded for us is a program we designed to enable older persons have fresh air. We invite about 50 older persons to a place, and then we get them to interact with one another. We look at their medicals, we give them health talks, how to take care of themselves at home. Then we show them examples of how to manage their sicknesses or issues, because one of the things that happens when you start getting old, you start suffering from aging sicknesses, diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, eye problem, and all that. So we teach them how to manage those. Then we make them to exercise together. They were able to exercise together, you know, people who have never exercised for a long time. We made them to play games together. They were able to play Ayo, draft, Ludo, all sorts of games, things that will remind them of, you know, when they were young. You know, so after doing that, we also bring them in contact with younger people for an intergenerational experience. You know, they relate. Then we have the cultural aspect, you know, of cultural dances and themselves, and then we let them dance. And your dancing makes you happy. And because, you know, the Bible says that a happy mind is like medicine. So we make them happy, and then we make sure they eat and interact, and then they go home. But the thing is that by the time they are leaving that interaction, they feel better, you know, they feel younger, they are happier. And this is the program that Voice sponsored for us. Last year, we only started with them last year. We were able to do 10 locations, and this year we'll be able to do 20 locations.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for that. I mean, you're really doing amazing for older people. You know, sometimes I think about my old age and then sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to build more relationship with older people so that, you know, we learn,
Yes.
so that I can unlearn or start doing some things that would probably affect me when I'm older.
That's true.
So I try to engage, and I'm happy that I'm actually engaging with you.
I'm very happy to be here because I'll be 77 years old in September,
Wow.
and I don't feel old because I'm interacting, I'm relating, I'm trying never to isolate myself. I actually lead a group that is health conscious in the area of healthy aging. We exercise every Saturday morning, 7:30 to 9, older persons, you know, about 50 or 60 of us. We come together on Saturday mornings. Then every 2 weeks we have what we call Bible study prayer meeting. And every month we have a breakfast prayer meeting where we bring people to come and talk to us about aging and health and all of that. So it is exciting, and we encourage you young people to know that every day you are aging and that you will get there. And so it is important to form habits that will help you to age well. I mean, my father had diabetes, and he died of diabetes, hypertension, and prostate cancer. Now, growing up, I did not think about my father's diseases, and by the time I was 42, I had already become diabetic. Because sometimes diabetes and some of cancers and all that runs in the gene, and it is for you to know that if your parents, any of them was diabetic, there's a chances that you will become diabetic. So you do things that will prevent you from becoming diabetic. I did not do anything. So when I became diabetic and then finally hypertensive, I now had to say, oh, this is what my father had. Okay. Now, because I've been managing diabetes for 33 years, I became conscious. I said, okay, if I'm not careful, I may also have prostate cancer like him. And so I started watching my prostate. And I tell you, immediately they did some tests, and I did, you know, other tests, and they said, oh, my prostate was cancerous. I told them immediately to take it out before it spreads in my body. So it is good to learn from your parents, form habits that will help you to overcome. The thing is that for diabetes, for example, you have 60% chance not to become diabetic if your parents were diabetic, because you can now cut down on sugar, you know, cut down on carbohydrates, and then begin to eat right now. And so when you begin to do that, you are now reducing the chances of becoming diabetic, or even things that can lead you to hypertension. A lot of salt, you put Maggi, you put salt, all of those things are all salt. You know, so you begin to form healthy living habits that will help you. And we try to encourage young people to form such habits. But for them, you know, life is still good and sweet, so they don't
to
look
enjoy
at
all
those
the fun of it.
You know, so we encourage people to begin to live right. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. So as a young person, we actually need to start living right from now.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. But so I want to say that you've talked about how you try to help elderly people, but can you tell us how you actually got into the space? Like, what was your motivation? What was your driving force?
For me as a person, I got into this space accidentally.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because in 2009, I left Senate in 2007. Okay, and by 2000, because I was diabetic and hypertensive, I was very sickly. And once I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you need a lifestyle change.
Oh,
Let me tell you, in 2009, lifestyle change as a use of word was not common. It is the internet that has made all these things common. But by then, when he said you needed a lifestyle change, I said, what does that mean? Well, he said I needed to eat right, I needed to do this and do that. I said, okay, if it's in the area of food, let me go and call my wife. So I went, I brought my wife, and he spoke to my wife about what he should be giving to me.
Yes, and what she should do.
That's how then he told me about other things, exercising and all that. I started practicing them. And when I started practicing them, I found that I was better off. So one day, I just had this impression hanging over me. What you've learned, teach your mates. Then I was 62 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I went to my church and spoke to my pastor that this is the impression I'm having, and I feel God wants me to teach other people who are aging how to live their lives so that they will minimize the adverse effects of their current sicknesses. And that's how I started, and then from there it led me to forming an organization called Graceful Aging Fellowship. And with the Graceful Aging Fellowship, that's where we exercise, that's where we teach people now how to eat right, that's how we bring people to talk to people on their health, and that's how I originally got into this space, into healthy aging. And it was in the course of healthy aging as a faith-based NGO that I got to meet other people who were in aging. And one day I said, when we were celebrating our 5th anniversary, I called all the groups that I knew were working with older persons. I said, come, let's form a stronger voice so that we can talk to government about older persons. You know? So about 13 of us were in that meeting, and we formed the Coalition of Societies for the Rights of Older Persons. That's how we got into the space now to become the voice for older persons, advocates for older persons, and all the things. And through it, first we worked with the ministry to produce national policy on aging.
Wow.
So we produced that policy, and then the bill on the national senior citizens was lying somewhere in the Senate. So I went to Senate, dug it out because I know there was a bill, and took it to the humanitarian when they started humanitarian unit, and encouraged the minister to implement it.
Wow.
And that's how the National Senior Citizens Center was formed.
Wow.
Which is a parastatal under humanitarian looking after older persons now. And then from there, we sat down in our office and documented a bill on the rights and privileges of older persons. We wrote the bill, put it into National Assembly. It was approved by the Senate. It was passed by the Senate, passed by the House, and it was remitted to the President, you know, on the 14th of February 2022. But he did not sign it before he left, Buhari.
Oh.
So that's why today there's no bill that protects the rights and privileges of older persons in Nigeria. If that bill was signed, now there are, you see, one thing with policies can change with government. A government can come with a new policy trust, but once there is a law, bill giving me rights, for example, the law could say that I'm entitled to free medical. Now, if I go to hospital and you don't treat me, I can sue you because the law has provided. But if it is a policy, there's nothing can be done. So that's why up to now we still feel there's a strong need to have laws protecting the rights and privileges of older persons, just as the rights of women are protected, the rights of children are protected. Nothing protects the rights of older persons. So our bill on the Older Persons' Rights and Privilege Bill was not signed, all right, but it's been passed by a National Assembly. Unfortunately, today it cannot be implemented. But we're going back to make sure that they look at it again. And so you find that because we formed a coalition
It was.
and came into this space to fight and advocate for older persons, we're able to speak out and government is able to hear us.
Wow, wow, that is, I mean, that is a lot that you did, your coalition and everything. But so, coming from your political experience,
Yes.
would you like to tell us a little bit of how, as a young person or as emerging non-profit, how we can leverage political relationship, like parties, political parties and government, so that we can actually implement policies that also affect us, just like you were able to do for elderly people?
Yeah. One unfortunate thing is that people who work in government don't think of life after government. They don't even think that some of them will age, and therefore they need to put policies and procedures in place that will look after them when they have left government. That's always the biggest problem with government, because I can bet you that when the president did not sign that bill, one ministry would have written a memo to say, don't implement this, it may cost too much money, or it may do this or that, you know. And therefore you find that all the while I was in politics, until I left, because when I left the Senate in 2007, I also left politics completely. I walked away from politics and went back to my business, you know. And then since 2007, I've never been in any political gathering or even gone to a political meeting. So, but I just walked away. In my case, I'm into medical laboratory. You know, my company will provide medical laboratory equipment. We support. Today, we manage the Federal Medical Center lab in Jabi.
Oh, wow.
We have a partnership with them, my company, which I'm chief executive. The same thing, Federal Medical Center, Kefi. We manage their lab for them. Okay, so I went back to because that was an area that was clearer to me. Politics, there are no rules and regulations. People do things with impunity. That is the sad thing about it. But you can't do without politics. Neither can you do without government. So what we need to do is to find a way to leverage our relationship as NGOs or CSOs, so that we can work them, because they are the only ones who can provide policies that they, the government, will listen to. So we need to find a way to be able to work with them, find an insider there who supports our cause for which we are fighting for. Just like we've learned here, you need to find a problem you want to solve. When you find that problem, you must find someone who can help you, you know, to manage relationships within government or relationships with ministries. And so it is important that we need to develop these rapports and relationships and have an insider supporter that will help us. Even in the bill we passed, we had to use some people who were interested in the affairs of the older persons to get our bills passed.
Wow, thank you so much for that. So coming from a young person's experience, or from a young person myself, how do you think that we can actually be included in politics? Because you also mentioned that these older people, they don't know that, or our politicians or people in government don't know that they'll get old. So they need to include more young persons in policy making. So how do you think we as young people can be better included?
That's where I would say that Voice has done very well in Nigeria. You know, they supported this Yaga. You know, they supported the Too Young to Run, and then the Run, you know, whatever. They funded such programs. That's where the young people like us need to get involved, you know, because look, like I said, no matter how dirty politics is, you still need young people there. And it is hoped that in future that young people will become the leaders of tomorrow. So the earlier we start inching in that direction, even if to know the policies and the procedures and the way the parties operate, You may not necessarily run the first time you go into politics. You just understand the ground.
it works.
You try to familiarize yourself and know how decisions are taken, and you get to know that it is not the man who wins that is selected, that you can be selected without winning an election. Like the Supreme Court governor in my state who didn't come first, second or third, but Supreme Court gave him the position.
Wow.
So that's politics for you.
Thank you so much for that, and it was really a very interesting conversation with you.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that I got to learn a lot, and I'm sure that our viewers will also get to learn a lot. Thank you so
very
much, Senator.
Thank you.